Welcome to Influenceologist. Roberto Monaco here with one more powerful interview. I am super excited to introduce you, my friend, one of my mentors, Dr. Chris Zaino. Dr. Chris, how are you doing?
Hey Roberto, what's going on? Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Of
it.
course, man. I'm super excited now. If you're watching us, if you're driving and you're listening to us on YouTube, if you're watching this on Facebook, if you're watching this on YouTube, I guarantee you this is going to be a life-changing interview for you. It's going to be about the psychology of success, okay? And before I start asking some questions about Dr. Zaino, let me create a context here. I met Dr. Zaino a year and a half ago through our mutual friend, Gary Gunnison, who also is an amazing guy. And Dr. Zaino and I started working together. And he really inspired me to take my mindset, my activity, my congruency to a whole new level. And one of the things that you're going to learn from Dr. Zaino, how congruent this guy is. And I see him as the Roger Bannister of his industry. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the story about Roger Bannister. I'm sure most people have heard about the guy who broke the 4-minute mile. So before, nobody could run a mile under 4 minutes, and then the first one he did it, and then once he did it, other people start doing it. And Dr. Zaino, he is one of the Roger Bannisters in his industry. He's a chiropractor. And just to have an idea, I want to create a context here. By the way, this interview is not for chiropractors, for everybody. In Influenceology, work with 30 industries. So if you're a loan officer, if you're a dentist, if you're a realtor, if you are a CEO, if you're a coach, if you're a speaker, if you're a financial planner, if you're a salesperson, if you're a technology guy and listen to us right now, this interview will change your life, I promise you. And the beauty is that the average chiropractor, give and take, the average clinic in America sees around 200 patients a week, the number of people they serve. And Dr. Zaino's clinic in Houston, due to his psychology, mindset, philosophy, serves more than 2,000 people a week. Yes, 2,000. Over 10 times. All right, not the worst guy, the average. So it's amazing the results, and one of the biggest reasons that he is able to produce amazing results. Imagine you produce 10x what the average industry produce, is because he thinks differently. So Dr. Zaino, thanks so much for giving your time and experience to our community today. I appreciate that. One of the things that I seen you speak, and I love your message, is because everything that you do comes from your purpose. So can you tell us a little about your background and why you believe purpose is so important for our professionals that are listening to us right now?
Well, no, absolutely. Now, the purpose was hugely important because so this has nothing to do with the profession you're in, but because you could have the best systems in the world, you could have the best even mentors in the world at some point, but if you don't have that purpose, that ether of that fire that lights you, then all those systems and communication skills are lacking. So what is this fire? So let me explain briefly my story. In 1998, I won Mr. America, so I looked a certain way. I felt a certain way. I was on the cover of the magazines, trained celebrities and professional athletes. And 6 months into my marriage, at 26 now, so this is a couple years later when I married my wife, 6 months into our marriage, I started going to the bathroom a lot, and it never stopped. I'm bleeding. There's mucus and blood. You can't hold your bowels anymore, and I'm hiding it. And it got to the point where one day, in the middle of public, I just lost it. I just lost my bowels and everything. And that was the first day my wife knew that there was anything wrong. And here she picks us up, and I had explained to her that I've been sick for a while, and I don't know why. I thought it would just go away. So I went to a doctor, and they diagnosed me with an incurable, irreversible disease called ulcerative colitis. So this is autoimmune, where my body is being eaten away by my own immune system, and they put me on drugs and this drug and that drug, and I went to all types of doctors all over the country, the top 4 of the best doctors in the world for digestive disease, and I went from 230 pounds down to 158 pounds in 4.5 months. And then now they were at the point where no drug was working, no protocol was working. They had to remove my colon, that I would have a colostomy bag that would break, that would leak, that I would still get infected. My chances of colon cancer went up 80%. So if this didn't kill me, colon cancer will. I wasn't guaranteed any improvement after the surgery. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of sick, suffering medical debt. And I'd be sterile. I wouldn't be able to have children. And that was it. So 2 weeks for surgery. And when I flew home to see my mother had already lost 2 sons at this point. She sent out an email. And this email that she sent out was praying for a miracle, right? What do you want that if your child was sick and dying? And you would want one thing, that they were healed instantly. And so she sent this around to hundreds of people, and one person got this email. This is my anatomy teacher in 10th grade. So he gets this email. He contacts my mom. We all meet up, and he says, I want you to go see my doctor. He's a corrective care chiropractor. So I'm sitting there, like maybe some of you thinking, well, chiropractic, well, what's that have to do with anything? I got this irreversible, incurable autoimmune disease, and you're talking about some guy's going to stretch my hamstrings out, or some muscle modality, or someone's going to pop my back. So I really didn't understand how that was connected anyway. And then he told me probably the most important question. He goes, are you willing to do whatever it takes to get well? And I was a person who I have done everything. And I said, I did do, and I have done everything that in order to get well. But see, the thing is, I had a blind spot in my life that I didn't realize. So he says, look, you got to go see my doctor. So I went to see this guy, Dr. Raji, who was a corrective care chiropractor. And he taught me, sat me down, and he educated me, number one, what chiropractic really was, how the body was created to heal and function, operate. It all made sense. It was logical. It was simple. I could use deductive reasoning. And then when I went back to look at my spine that no one else ever did, my spine was destroyed. And in that moment, I saw that was the problem that no one ever told me. And so he says, are you committed to doing whatever it takes? I'm like, I would like to, but I have no resources. Here I had all this medical debt. My wife was a personal trainer. My mom was living off my dead father's Social Security. I was in college living off student loans. And I said, I'd love to do it, but I'm tapped out. I don't have any resources. And he looked at me and says, you know what? It's not about the resources. It's about becoming resourceful. And he's right, because when the human being is stuck in a corner, it's amazing that we'll start to see opportunities if we choose that we would otherwise not see. And my wife told me, she says, listen, even though I was scared and I had to do what the doctors told me to, she's like, listen, number one, she's like, you're not guaranteed you'll get through the surgery. We'll always be under the burden of sick, suffering medical debt. We'll be on $800 a month of drugs for the rest of my life. I still have a chance of cancer of doing this. We'll never have kids. And she's like, and I need you here as long as possible. She's like, we're going to do whatever it takes. So we got a bunch of credit cards. We put the care on the credit cards. And within 7 months, my body healed. It got off medications, and the blood stopped at that 7 month. And in that moment, I realized when my body healed from someone correcting my spine and my nervous system that controlled life in the body, I realized at this point how many hundreds of thousands of people, because of tradition and because of familiarity, are doing things for their health and they don't even know what's going on, and I'm not taking full control of it. How many millions of people have done that? Maybe your family, your friends, have done through the same thing. And so then now 13 years later, looking back, I could see that, I actually seen that I was a week and a half away of making a decision of going for that surgery. But because one person took the time to tell me here 13 years later, I'm healthy, I'm whole, I get to take care of my wife, which means the world to me. I have 2 beautiful sons, Justice and Titus, that never would have been here. Because of what I went through, I didn't get a miracle. I got something better. I got an experience. I got to experience patience and discipline. I got to experience having the right people in my life, give me the right information, the ability to have discernment, to put application and action behind that information to turn into results. And that became my profession, to be a corrective care chiropractor. And I would never know that at that time, we would be the largest clinic in the history of that profession. I speak all over the world, and doctors from all over the world come just to see how they could change their time. So hundreds of thousands of years have been added to hundreds of thousands of lives because one person took the time to tell me. So in that moment, I found my job and my profession, but I still did not have my purpose. And so there was one day when I was actually working now. I'm a chiropractor, and I'm not doing very well. Because why am I not doing well? Because I want to help people, but I'm fearful of what they think. I was afraid of speaking, and communicating. And I was just getting my butt handed to me. You know, all we did was take insurance because at least the insurance paid for it. So that was it was almost free to some people. And then one day I went to a concert. One of my patients invited me. And in the Woodlands, we have a tent that holds 10,000 people. So Coldplay will be there. It's really cool. And when I walked into this concert, I saw 10,000 people waiting. I was just kind of walking, you know, through there, and all of a sudden, I just started getting emotional. You know, I was working so many late hours, working as hard as I can, mediocre results, and I just broke down crying. And I just saw all these people, and my wife was like, "What's going on?" And I didn't understand what was going on, but deep down, what I was feeling is I saw all these people, and I knew that I had a message that saved my life, and I knew that I wasn't effectively leading those people in my town. And it got to a breaking point in that moment where I realized that I was not becoming the leader of my town I was created to be. And I realized that that was my sole purpose inside me that was trying to reach out, saying that if I don't step up to become a leader, you know, I'm never going to walk into the true life and purpose I was created to have. And so in that moment, you know, I might have been into chiropractic as a profession, but that was the moment when that profession was now in me, and I had this purpose. And the three major things I changed in that moment right there in front of everybody was this. Number one, I was going to allow my purpose to be larger than my fear. So my purpose now was a beacon that was pulling me, no matter how dark and scary and foggy my life might be at the moment, but my purpose was my beacon that was pulling me. Number two, I had to develop predictable communication systems. So see, communication was the most important part. I had great technique, I had great procedure, I had great paperwork, but if I was not able to communicate my purpose, my heart, my vision, and my love to people, then it would be like my mouth was shut, like nothing ever happened. And the third thing I had to do was I had to go out and I had to find thought leaders in my life. These were pay for mentors, have people in my life that are already doing what I wanted to do, and ask them for advice, become coachable. You know, submit to them and say, what do you want me to do? So I could learn from their experiences, from their mistakes. You know, all areas of my life, I found people that were at a level I wanted to get up, and they helped pull me to that area so I could have wisdom, insight, and understanding around me. And in that little bit of time there, we literally, that was the time of my life, Roberto, when we went from seeing about 200 patients a week, which was good, to 600 patients visits a week. Then we started really getting the message out, and within 19 months, we were at 2,600 patients. You know, seeing 2,600 patients in a week. And people would ask,
just like is when people when sometimes I tell. By the way, that story is a Hollywood story, my friend. Truly is a Hollywood story. It's just the. Well, I'm taking notes here because I want to talk about this conversation about these three things here that I think is the lessons that you went through: purpose, bigger than fear, communication, and thought leaders. I want to spend some time on it. It is just amazing how you're able to have this like aha moment and never went back. How long has it been that you had this aha moment when you're watching the concert and finally you be like, okay, I get it. When you had this breakdown, it's almost got you start your rebirth process right then. How long has it been?
That was 6.5 years ago. Yeah, it was in the summer, 6.5 years ago. And I'll be practicing 9 years in October.
Wow. So when you tell, because I know, by the way, this is an interview, as I mentioned, is for everybody because everybody go through this challenges in life. I wanna spend some time here talking about purpose because it's almost like before. Here you have your profession, you're doing okay, and the first step that really took a next level was to be like really clear about the purpose, and you mentioned that purpose bigger than fear. So if you have, for example, a real estate agent right now, a loan officer, a coach right now, a financial planner, how do you tap in this purpose on a daily basis? Because I think like some people get confused and sometimes like, you know, my purpose is to help people, but then they're afraid to communicate or they don't have the fire that you have every single day. So how does someone actually tap in their purpose?
Great question. And so I would tell anybody this, you know, I lose my purpose and my focus very quickly. probably quicker than someone else would. But the reason why people don't see that in me is because I develop systems in my life, or rhythms and rituals, to make sure I stay true north. Okay, remember that purpose is that beacon. So, if no matter what profession you're in, real estate, whatever that is, there are people that you could listen, you could read their books, you could listen to their audios, the things that get you excited, that refocus you. So what are those things? So I listen to audios every day when I'm working out. I have a power hour where I'm reading the book. I have affirmations that I read in the morning. And these affirmations, they're not to just inspire me, they're to keep me on focus, to keep me, because when I'm into myself, when I'm selfish, then I'm tired, I don't want to do it. But every single time when I don't feel like doing something, so like next week I have 3 talks, and one is in downtown Houston, and it's an hour away, and I'm like, I got to work, I got to drive an hour. So see, I go through that. I go through, I don't want to do this. I go through all that, but then I go, well, listen, I'm going to go there. My job is to speak my message. You have a message. Everybody has a story. And when I speak that message, I know people's lives are going to be transformed. And the biggest miracles and the biggest, greatest things in my life have happened when I least felt like it. I know, Roberto, you told me a story when, it was last minute, you went ahead and did it, and it opened up all this other stuff. So when you least feel like it, I feel this, and if an opportunity is brought in front of me, whether I feel like it or not, the universe has put it there for a reason, either for me to excel to a new level, or it's going to be a situation, and I know, Roberto, you had one of those, and I did too, where we have a learning experience. Mm-hmm. So let's say I do a talk and I get what someone would consider a failure or a bad reaction. It's not a failure. To me, it's a learning experience. So I get to learn and tweak what I have to do. So either or, I know I'm going to come out a much better person for doing it. So that's how I listen to audio, I read books, and I have mentors in my life that help keep me focused on a daily basis.
Like, one of the things that I want to discuss here, you talk about purpose and fear. A lot of people, from anybody in sales to loan officers to realtors, when they communicate in the marketplace, they know that their audience, they have a prejudgment of the profession. Oh, you're a realtor, or oh, you're a loan officer, oh, you sell cars, oh, you're a coach, oh, you're a speaker. I mean, I have it too. Oh, you're a chiropractor, right? We all have it. I do. And sometimes this image can be good, and sometimes this image cannot be good. And how do you deal with that to overcome that image that the audience may have, a negative perception? How do you overcome that?
Well, a couple things, Roberto. The first thing is I believe I focus on my differences. And I use that to that person. So when someone says, listen, you might come in here and see the word chiropractor on different streets. The thing is, and you think they're all the same. I go, but what do you do? And they'll say, well, I'm a realtor. I'm like, what if I told you, well, you're all the same? Is that correct? And they would be like, of course not. So I like, yeah, so I know that. So I focus on how I am different. I focus on, I'm curious. If I'm in a one-to-one conversation, there's one-to-one and one-to-many. So one-to-one conversation, if I meet someone and they say, hey, what's your name? I'm like, Dr. Zaino. What do you do? I'm like, I'm a chiropractor. And I ask them immediately. And they go, oh, and I'm like, well, what do I do? Like, I have them tell me what do I do. And chances are they don't tell me what I do.
They don't know.
And then I say, thank God I asked you that question, and that leads me right in to explain to them, what I do, what I truly do. So that's a great way, because when people say, oh, you're a chiropractor, the reason why they're not asking to come into my office because they don't understand what I do. So I want to take it a step back. I know people might have preconceived issues or stereotypes, but I think one huge thing about a leader is you need to be sold on yourself, right? So I'm a true believer of what I do. I'm so sold on myself that I believe that every single person I talk to, what I have to say will change their life, whether they know it or not at that moment. But I so believe in what I do because it's purpose driven. And so I know, so if they don't understand, that's easy. I could teach you and lead you and show you and change your paradigm to see that I am different, and through education and information be able to shift people's minds to see that what I do is right for them or not right for them. I like to sometimes separate the flock sometimes, but I focus on my differences, and I become curious. because I want to know what they know. I'm not concerned, I want them to know what I am saying, but I'm even more concerned about, I want to know one-to-one rather, what they think of what I do. Because when I could clear up all those misconceptions or traditional stereotypes, which is rooted in nothing, and when you can now unplug those traditional stereotypes and actually now pour into them truth, then you'll see a tremendous difference, and they'll appreciate it.
I love that. I love that.
Right?
I absolutely love that. What do you think? This message can be for chiropractors and for people from outside chiropractors. What do you think is the number one fear that stops people from really living and communicating their purpose consistently? What's the number one fear?
Oh, because we don't the law of detachment. We're so afraid. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of people not wanting us, not liking us. And if someone rejects you, it's not a good feeling. You feel like a failure. But I have this question to ask yourself, and this is really a game changer. For everyone who's watching this right now, you're worried about what people think, or for the doctors, I need to do my research, or I'm going to do whatever it is. There's some type of thing you're worried about what people are going to say. But listen to this: you believe you're an intelligent person watching this. So if you're an intelligent person, if you think that, not only did you believe what you do or what you work in, but you believed it so much that you actually dedicated your life to that profession. So if you're a realtor, you believe in that, otherwise you wouldn't be a realtor. If you're a chiropractor, if you're a doctor, like not only as just a layman person, you sat there, you heard this material or this information, you got it, right? It made sense. You liked it so much that you actually either got certified or went to school to become it. So if you're an intelligent person and you understood that, why would you be worried about what anybody else would think? Right? So I take it that way. Like, I'm not worried about what people think. It's because I believe it. It makes sense to me. So why wouldn't they understand it? And so the fear of rejection is huge. But the thing is, that fear of rejection, that will always no leader, no big leader ever. They worried about it, but not to the point where it affected them from doing their purpose. Yes, they might have got rejected, but they went through it because they knew the one person that had helped, it was all worth it. Like, they didn't go in for the 100, they went in for the one. And they went into knowing that even if no one, I've done it, I've been time where I had a hostel room where even if no one wanted it, at least I was doing what I was put on this planet to do. Like, your job is to do your 50%, and what they do on the other end, that's really up to them. But it is our job to, when we do communicate our message and our purpose and our passion, to do it at the best level possible. Not raw, but literally surgical and calculated. And that's why, that's how I work with Roberto, is because even though I might have been a good communicator, I wanted to be the best or better. And Roberto was able to help me out with that in all my processes as well. So I say, I just remember that you do what you do because it made sense to you and you're an intelligent person and you dedicated your life to it. So I mean, why would you worry what that person thinks? I
love what you said, that leaders go for the one off the 100, right? It's so true. It's so true, because we have a tendency, and that happens to me before, where I do a talk. Let's say that even a talk is good. Let's say there's 10 people in a room, and then I got 8 people to say, "Oh my God, thanks so much, you helped me," whatever, and then the one guy who give me like a negative attitude, I leave the meeting, who I'm thinking about the 8 people or 9 that changed their lives, or the one who, our mind has a tendency to go on the other person. Why the guy was so mad at me? Why he didn't like my message? And we have the tendency.
Why do we think that way? So right. So why am I worried about the one person and not the 9 people that we truly help? So what is that in the human psyche or ego that does that?
I think I don't know, maybe we are conditioned to look for what's negative to protect ourselves, maybe.
Sure, and then it's more painful. We don't like pain, right?
No. No. For me, the way I dealt with rejection, when I did Tony Robbins' event, the Date of Destiny, was really helpful because he does all these values exercise. And one of the things that I took away was that when we everything has we have our values and our rules, And if you ask yourself, what has to happen for me to feel rejected? It's a very simple question. So what has to happen for you to feel rejected? So people say, well, when I walk in a room, someone look at me with this weird look. Huh. How often that's going to happen? Every single time. How often you're going to feel rejected? Every single time. So there's no actually book where you can buy and say, hey, in order for you to feel rejected, 3 people, I mean, should create their own rule. So then once I realized that I created my own rules, what if my rule was something like crazy like this? And I literally wrote this down. The only time I feel rejected, Roberto Monaco, is when 7 billion, not million, billion people look at me at the same time and say, man, you're terrible. Then, only then, I'm going to feel rejected. Oh, well, so far, I never got 7 billion people. Maybe one day, right? But I don't know. So you create your own rule to feel rejected. So I think it's a lot to do with like being aware that every time you feel awkward, then we have a rule that's causing that. So thanks for sharing that.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about your principle number 2. Why communication is important for any professional? Why is so important?
Because if we're not able to effectively communicate our purpose and our vision and what we do, then those people don't know we're there. Because no matter every single person that's watching this, you have something, a service, a product, something in your hands that people are literally praying for. You know, they're wanting, but they just don't know you're there. And so now when you go communicate that, like for instance, for me, like chiropractic, I've been to a chiropractor when I was in football and high school and baseball, but I didn't know what it was because no one told me. So if I don't know what it is, I'm automatically going to have this preconceived. I'm going to, like Roberto says, I'm going to make my own rules. I'm going to make my own story of what a realtor is. You know? So what's going to happen is I'm going to go through all that stuff, and then, but when now you're able to effectively communicate that, you know, they might have no idea what you really do. And it might be so much better, or they'd be like, that's exactly what I was looking for, or I've always been wanting this. And then from there, they're able to, that's why your story and your story and being able to communicate that by asking the right questions, getting them engaged, will really, and Roberto, that's what I talked about. I really think that no matter what you do in life, it's all about building your unique story and tying in your hero's journey, literally, to that, you know?
It's so funny, like, obviously I heard your story several times, and today you're telling him, like, and I found myself, like, glued on the screen, like, my attention 100% is just, like, it was fascinating, the roller coaster that you take it. A lot of people, when I have this conversation about storytelling, about who you are, what makes you unique, people say, "Oh, don't have an office special." I don't have a story, right? I'm sure you heard that before with the doctors who go to your program.
Yeah.
They say, "Oh, I don't have a story," and it's really important that to realize that everybody has a story, right? Everybody. Now, here's a question for you, because you do a lot of speaking. How do you you tell most of your speaking engagements, you always tell a story. What's your strategy to communicate your story, and every single time you tell is fresh? That means that the audience knows, oh, the audience is impacted and has emotion. What is the mental process that you go through when you tell a story so that feels like, hey, is the first time I'm telling?
Great question. And one of the most important things I do when I tell my story is what gets me to that area where I feel that I'm present and I'm in that moment, and I know people are in that moment with me, is in my story, when I talk about the depths of the depths of the depths, the deepest, darkest place I got to go to. For me, I know that if I go to that deepest, darkest place, I'm there. For me, it's when I was standing in TJ Maxx and I went to the back to try to go to the bathroom, and the bathrooms were closed. And right there, I couldn't make it to the front. And that was the first time in front of a group of people I lost my bowels. And when I talk about that, and I'm bleeding, there's blood and mucus, I'm seeing the 8 people that were surrounded by me, looking at me, but they had an expression that they felt bad for me, but at the same time they were disgusted at what they were seeing. And in that moment, I'm feeling this and I'm feeling it back. So I'm there when I do that. So I relive that, and then I take through that journey. And but the thing is, if you don't think you have a story, every single person do you have not only see the problem, Roberto, is that not only do people have a story, they have so many amazing stories that I think speaking in stories and at the same time getting your message, kind of combined with that and
Yep.
chelated to it to where you could tell your message along with your personal story. I think not only is it more effective, you're real, you're not, and people relate to it in a much bigger area. Let me use an example. A guy came over to work just to look at something in my car. I have a little device that it's a load jack. You steal my car and they could find it immediately. So a guy came over to make sure it was installed correctly. And when he opened up my garage, he says, listen, he's like, I was taking a half a day off. My son broke his arm the first day of school. And I have my son in the back of my truck, and he's in the sling. He's like, and I was going to take a half a day off of work and bring him to the doctor and get his arm fixed. And he's like, but I saw your car on my order, and I wanted to take it because, do you mind if he would look at your car? Because, he likes, his son likes sports cars. So I'm like, of course. And he's like, the reason why I'm asking you is like because there's some people that when they do have a nice car like that, they won't even let me take a picture with my cell phone to show my son. And I just wanted to ask you, so do you mind? I'm like, of course not. So his son comes out, and his son's holding his arm because he broke his arm. So he's going to work with his dad with a broken arm that's not even set. And the first thing when I look at the son, I asked him his name. His name was Kevin. I'm like, Kevin, I go, let me tell you a story. I go, Kevin, when I was your age, he was probably 8 or 9. I go, Kevin, when I was your age, I had this very car on my wall. And I had a huge poster, and my dad got that for me, this poster. And I go, and every time I used to see that car, I used to have my family chase that car and to look at it because, I just love that car. It was on a poster. And I carry that picture with me for my entire life since I was 8. And I had to go to I go, did you have one of those on your wall? He's like, I had one of those on the walls, and his son had one of those on the walls. And I told him, like, and I knew there would come a day where if I ever was able to get one of those cars, when I got that car, I wouldn't hide it. I would make sure that kids just like you would be able to see it, get in it, have fun with it. I go, because the car is not just for me, it's for you to enjoy as well. And
That's cool.
See, Roberto, it made that kid's day, but do you see the essence? So any guy listening to this right now who had a sports car on their wall, you get what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so instead of saying, yeah, you can look at a kid, but it's we have a story for everything to be able to get our message across. So I said that story just to tell the kid is not only can you look at it, but I want you to enjoy it. That I knew someday a little successful thing that I was able to become successful to get that car. But once I was successful, then you go and you share it with others that might have that dream as well. And you have a story no matter what you do. But you're going to learn, and Roberto, you're great on showing us how we could pull that story out of us and then how to then be able to put it into a system to make it applicable.
Thanks, my brother. I appreciate that, man. I still want to ride the Lamborghini when I go and visit, man.
Yeah.
Still want to do that ride. So let's talk about the third point here. You talk about thought leader. One of the things that the characteristics of successful people, and I know there's several things that you talk about, is about being coachable and looking for people who have achieved mastery or have achieved amazing results in a specific area and look for help. Now, I found that so many people, what stopped them from being coachable and for looking for people is their ego, right? Because one time I was reading a book, and I'm trying to remember the book. It was a sales book. I might remember later. And in the beginning, in the first chapter, they say like this: if I look for an outside coach or a mentor for help, for someone who's producing a bigger result than I am in that specific area, will unconsciously implies that I'm wrong, right? So let's say I'm a chiropractor, just give an example, and I'm seeing 200 people a week and you're seeing 2,000, and then that implies that if I reach out to you to ask for your help, implies that I don't know something, or implies that I'm not doing something right, I'm doing something wrong, and nobody wants to what? Feel wrong, feel that I'm
Right.
doing something wrong. Therefore, I don't reach out. So what with that translated to that, I prefer to be right with poor results than say, hey, by the way, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about growing and reaching out and putting my ego aside and look for someone who's willing to show the way, a better way. So how do you have the psychology if you people out there that are listening to us right now, they don't have mentors, they don't have a coach, they don't have a mastermind group, what is the message for them so that they can open up and be open to coaching, to could it be through books, through audiobooks, through mentors, to masterminds? How can you inspire them to have the psychology?
I mean, that was huge. So the way I always looked at it is, even reading in Proverbs in the Bible, the richest man that ever lived was the wisest man that ever lived. So it kept on saying in Proverbs, take your money and take your gold and take your silver and buy wisdom, buy insight and understanding. And so the whole book was about riches weren't in money or gold or silver or diamonds. It was all about the one who had the wisdom and the insight and the understanding. So I realized that money was just a means to get to that. So then I just started, so to me, seeking out someone who did it right. Now, this went back to when I was younger. So when I played the piano, I got to a certain concert status because I had a piano teacher. I just didn't start playing the piano, so my teacher taught me for years and years and years by my side so I could then reach that status. When I competed in bodybuilding, I would work out, but then when I got ready for a show, I always had a trainer or a coach that gave me a good critical eye because my mind starts being my worst enemy. So I had someone, a coach or a team, someone there or a trainer to now be able to give me an honest critical assessment, and then I was able to get through. That was my team. So the same thing when it came to business, it's like, well, if I want to be the best at what I do, I'm going to seek out the best that's in my profession. I didn't look at them in envy or try to point the finger showing on how many things they did wrong. I want to see, who's doing it the best, and I reached out to them. I said I'd work I'd work for them for free just to learn. Well, how can they help me? And they were gracious enough to help me. So I have saved decades and decades and decades of mistakes, along with making my own personal mistakes. I've saved millions and millions of dollars because I reached out and said, listen, and I just asked for help. And I would get their wisdom and insight that only life and experience was able to give you. So the ways you could do that is this. You could start as little as books. I mean, these books behind me. There's no fictional books. This is just all, on this side, that side right there, that's all my profession. That's philosophy and stuff in my profession. That's books written from the best doctors of chiropractic that ever lived, the developers of it. So the developer was one of the best, so I read and read and read. These guys are dead, but I'm still learning from them. Books, you got audios, like Roberto said. You have, books on tape audio, podcasts, blogs, all these other things, podcasts. And then now the next level, so that'll get you to a certain point, right? And then when you get to that certain point, you feel doing good. Now you be like, it's going to take the next level. Now you go up and you invest even more in yourself. So now we go to seminars, big seminars, a couple $1,000s. So it's full immersion seminars. And then you'll do that for a while, or maybe a coaching program. And then you say, you know what, I'm ready. And then you'll know I'm ready for now the top of the tier. You don't have to go right to the top, but then when you're ready there, I'm going to go to the top of the tier. And then when you're looking at investing $20,000, $30,000 a year, up to $100,000 a year in having these thought leaders or people that are the best in what they do. So I have a thought leader, like Roberto is my communications thought leader and mindset. Garrett Gunderson is financial thought leader. I have other thought leaders in my life that I invest in them because you know what? They help. I see that as an investment in wisdom, insight, and understanding. They allow me to become better than I ever could possibly be on my own. And because of their help and their wisdom, that 20,000, 50, whatever that is combined of these thought leaders, that equates in my life millions of dollars. So if I had to borrow $20,000 to make over $1 million, I would do that all day long. So to me, buying, wisdom books are so cheap. I get these books. No one wants these books. They're throwing them away on Amazon. 2 cents.
I
And
know
so I'm like,
it's
2 cents.
something that I always blows. I'm like this morning. I went to today's. We're recording this on this conversation on Sunday, and this morning, so my first hour lifting has been audiobook. Right, learning, and then I did the stairs, half an hour reading. For me, I would say that the thing that has changed my life most is training, is audio books, is seminars. Because here's my mindset. Okay, so let's say you spend 30 years learning one skill, whatever the skill is, and then you put everything you learn, the mistakes, the failures, the success in a book for 20 bucks, and you can tap into that in 30 years for 20
Oh,
bucks. People don't do it. This is insane. For me, it's like, you're not reading 3-4 books a month. I'm like, and you want to be successful? You're crazy. I mean, really. Now, if you don't want to be at another level, then respect. Go watch Kardashian housewives and football all day, right? But dude, if you really are committed to your profession, to a purpose, to help your family, and you're not investing time and energy to learn 4 or 5 books a month, it's crazy for me. No.
you know, you're just looking for the one thing. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, you could read a couple pages, and if you get, hey, that one thing. What was that one thing? That one thing that refocused you, or you know,
Yeah.
I'm always play. It's just it's not. I think what happens is they get a book. They're like, when am I going to have the time to read this whole book, or how am I going to learn and adapt? No, you just make it an hour before bed or whenever, like you say, the workout. Like you read it, and you get the one thing. Take a note, put it on your notes on your phone, and start distilling it down. Don't read the book for information. Read the book for impressions. It's like, how did it speak to you? And then I write that down, because when I read or listen to audios, I'll listen to the same audios over and over again, but they speak to me differently at different times in my life, determining upon what I'm going through at that moment. So it's like books and audio, they're not just, they're living and active. They're applying to your life in that day and time, and it is my single most important thing I do. If any doctor asks, what is it? I'm like, I listen to audios and I read books on a daily basis, and I discipline the time to do that. I make the time for it. I don't make the time because I'm dreading it, but I know if I don't make that time, or that time is so precious to me because it makes me better every time I do it. And so I see that.
I want to talk about one of your trademarks, which is so Dr. Zaino and I start working together, and everybody talks about taking action.
Mm-hmm.
Any success course will tell you, hey, gotta take action, which I agree, Dr. Zaino agree. But something that you personally have taught me is I call the speed of action, the speed of implementation, is how fast you take action, because a lot of people say, I'm going to take action, and they take action, but maybe they take action in dreams 2 months from now, or a month from now, or they're going to listen to it maybe 3 days from now. And one of the things that you were different is that you take action. By the time you and I talk and you hang up and you said you're going to do something, the email came out after 5 seconds. I'm like, how is that possible? He does so fast. So what is that psychology? How do you keep that energy to take action so fast? Because it is amazing.
Well, it's procrastination is horrible, and I'm a procrastinator by nature. That is just how I used to be. I used to be a procrastinator, and I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like seeing that I was going to do something, and then as time went on, the law of diminishing intent affected me, and it wouldn't get done, and I would kind of feel. There's a lot of opportunities in my life, Roberto, that I missed out on, or it didn't happen because of that. I didn't like that pain, so I know that when I'm inspired and impressed upon to do something, it doesn't have to be done all at that point, but I have to do something to start momentum in that direction. So once I have momentum and going, I'm there. So when we decide to do something, I'm in, I do it, because the longer I think about it, the more I'll talk myself out of it. Or the more I'll procrastinate, or the more my to-do list things will get in the way of it. When I'm excited and impressed upon it, I start the ball rolling now, and it's like getting a locomotive. Like when a train is at stop, it takes so much energy and so much power to get that thing moving. But once it starts to move, it takes less and less energy, and that thing starts, when it starts building momentum, it becomes unstoppable. So the same thing with when it comes to something in your life you wanted to do, whether it be something for your health or something for your life, for your marriage, it takes that initial power and action to get the thing moving. But once it's moving, it becomes relatively fun, energizing, and exciting to continue with.
Love it. So I'm curious. I like these interviews because I'm the benefit the most, right? I spend time with you and I answer my questions. One of the questions that I have for you is that here you have, right, the doctor. Probably it's safe to say that you have one, if not the most, one of the business practices in chiropractic in the history of the profession. If not the most, one of the most. Very successful. How do you find time? Because you always find time to do interviews, you find time to work out, you find time. I see a lot of videos, you and your wife. I find time to work out, you find time to travel. How do you go about, because I think one of the biggest pains people have, they don't have a plan to manage their daily activities. That's the biggest pain, because people, they wake up on their phones, Facebook, and then an email, they're always reacting. That's the biggest problem. When I do surveys for seminars, time management, right, or how you manage your day is like always number one, number two. How a successful guy like you, who's super busy, who has amazing results to back it up, how do you go about organizing your day and executing in your day?
Well, the first thing I do is I delegate things that I could give the job for someone else to do. So, I don't mow my lawn and stuff like that. I delegate things out, so it actually frees up a lot of time. My team or my office does a lot, and we could do that. And then so the excuse to come in, well, what if I don't, I have to do everything. What if I don't have the resources to delegate? Well, it really comes down to this, and I didn't read this anywhere, but it comes down to this. I find the time for the things that I want to do. If people find times to cheat on their spouses, people, and they have a busy day, it's crazy. Like when you want to do something, you find the time to do it. And I'm in the health field, so when people, I don't have the time for my health. Yeah, but they have the time when they're sick to go down to the hospital for 4 hours. They have the money all of a sudden to pay for all their drugs and medical bills. All these other things, they find the time. People in a nursing home have time. People in the nursing home have money, but they don't have their health, so they can't do anything about it. So for me, it's like when something's important to me, I will always find the time, and I delegate it. I have a calendar, and we'll book it. So when Roberto's like, "Can you talk at this time?" You bet. Go on my calendar. Boom. In technology, it becomes very distracting, but if you control, it's a force. It's a force of information that if you control it and tame it, it could be very beneficial. So if Roberto tells me, "Can we meet?" Boom, 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 done. Make the appointment. We're set. And that appointment, so that it's a solid yellow line. Nope, that appointment is there. So on Friday nights, there's daddy date night with my son Justice, and we watch a movie and we do this. Nothing else gets in the way of that. So it's all in my calendar. I do it, and I make time for it. I work out. I work. There's no missing it because it means a lot to me. And if I want something and it means something to me and it's a priority of my life, I always find the time for it. So that's also saying, and Roberto, so it burns the other way, because that means that, well, what do you mean? If I can't find the time, that means it's not a priority in my life? Well, you got to review your values. If it really was a priority in your life, because I'll tell you why, because as busy as people are, I could show you right now, there's a huge line at Starbucks of people who don't have the time, and they're waiting in Starbucks in the morning like this at 7. So they woke up early. They woke up 30 minutes early. They got dressed early. They're sitting in a line at Starbucks. They got the exact change for a very expensive coffee, and they go to the line. So they plan their day so they get to that Starbucks drive-through line, where they could have just made coffee at home and saved a half hour and $5. So the thing is, that proves to me that people will do whatever they want. People will do. They have the time. They have the money to do whatever they want when they really want it. And that's just my analogy when I look at Starbucks.
That's true. So I'm gonna ask a question here that I think that everybody can really stop and think about it and apply in their lives. if you were to teach 3 beliefs, maybe you already taught beliefs. Okay,
Yeah.
you and I never talk about that. But if you were to teach only 3 beliefs for your kids to assure they're successful, they're fulfilled, they're happy, what would they be? 3. I'm gonna write this down here. Maybe you never thought about it. Maybe you already done it.
Yeah, no. I want my kids to know is
So they can be successful and fulfilled.
do what you love to do. You know, I would, and then seek the people who are doing what you love to do, who are doing it the best, and go and sit at their feet and learn from them. And that money is the means to an end. So money, and take your money, invest it back into what you love to do, and don't work for money. Allow money to be that thing that lubricates or keeps that purpose going stronger and stronger. Invest back into yourself.
Love that. Thank you. Thanks for sharing
And
that. So what's go ahead.
So that was like, love what you do.
Well, love what you do. Seek the best.
Yes.
Seek the best that you're doing.
And then learn from them.
And then
and then allow money to just be a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see so many, Roberto, because again, being in the health thing, I've seen so many people who chased money their entire life that they lose it all because of sickness, disease, divorce. Like I've seen it. So they're trying to be successful in business, and they're working harder and harder, and then their family and their health and everything goes to crap. It just goes away, and they have regret. So the thing is, like, so I want them to just be motivated, knowing that finance is a means to an end, but it's all powering what they love to do. And so if they love their family, if they love their the values, have a core set of values, make decisions based on their values, not on what people necessarily think. So all these things. There's a bunch of things I would tell them. But I just want to make sure that they don't end up with all this money, divorced, no family, and unfulfilled. So money's not the thing, but society and media makes it seem that way.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do what you love to do. You could do what you love to do and have millions of dollars too, right? So I mean, it's just a better approach at it.
I know you always talk about the power of vision.
Yeah.
What is the vision for you? Like, how long have you been? How many years in chiropractic now?
9.
9 years.
Mm.
And you have achieved what most doctors would love to be achieving out there. So what's the vision for you?
So my sole purpose is to lead people towards fulfilled lives to the God-given principles and laws of healthy living. So it's to lead people towards fulfilled lives to the God-given laws and principles of healthy living. So that is my purpose on this planet. So anything I do has to be towards that. So chiropractically speaking, the way I do that is laying hands on people and helping people. Myself personally, teaching other doctors so they can help more people too. And then, but now like we talked, Act 1 was bodybuilding in college and stuff like that. Act 2, chiropractic, a single office. And I think really my Act 3, 40 to 50 or longer, is taking the mindset principles or teaching people how to create a philosophy of life, because we all have a philosophy. Mm-hmm. It's just being able to know, well, what do I believe? What are the values that I have? How do I think things through? Not being reactive to everything, being inside out versus outside in, and really be able to take control of the mindset of their life. Because the successfulness of whether it be bodybuilding or chiropractic was, it was here, and from the wisdom of people that surrounded me, and it wasn't because I got lucky. So I realized that the principles that I teach to my patients on mindset, this is stuff that helps them. It doesn't matter what profession you're in. So I really think this whole championship thinking, successful principles things will be the next thing. Kind of stuff like we talked about today, but being practical, not just inspiring people, but looking to see people transform. So inspiration is you get excited. and in 2 hours you're back down, but something where we could take something, get a little bit inspired, but now have something tangible that we could put together and exercise. Like you said, when you said, what are the things that make you feel rejected? Like you went through this exercise. Well, when you said that question, I have never in my life actually asked myself that question. So that quality question right there, that I'm going to sit down after this and write down, well, I'll write a list on what makes me feel rejected, and for the first time, I have control over that in my life. How cool is that? So see, that simple exercise is life-changing. So I want to do something where we could change people, because I think we have so much tradition, and we're living up to other people's visions, what our parents wanted us to be, what our peers wanted us to be, that we have all this interference, and we're never really quite living and walking in what we were purposed to do. And so if we could clear all those onion layers away so that person could be their true selves, or we could have a definitive philosophy and definitive values and understand who we are, then I really think we could be tremendously more impactful in our lives.
Thank you. Dr. Z, thanks so much for your time today, for your wisdom, for your passion. Always awesome to have a inspiring conversation with you, my brother. Appreciate you in the name of Influenceology, Jeff, in our community here. Thanks so much for being with us today. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Roberto. Appreciate you. Thanks, everybody.
If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
I could just go to CairoThoughtLeaders.com and hit the email. I get those emails, me or Dr. Tabor. So that's the best way you can reach out to me. And if you have any cool ideas, let me know. Just please give me your feedback.
All right, I appreciate that, buddy. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.